a session. So first thing we want to talk about is the actual pain point itself. So, you know, what are we trying to accomplish here? What we're looking at is the actual pain point of having those flexible payment options. So being able to, when your customers have multiple payment options, maybe they want to pay 20% by credit card, maybe they want to pay 40% by check, maybe they want to pay by wire transfer. Not having that flexibility to change payment method from what the original was sent to the customer, or not being able to offer multiple payment options, can really slow down the ordering process. That can slow down your project process. That can slow things down to the point where you may not be able to move forward with something because you're still waiting on just a payment to get started. So there's a lot of different ways we can do this in QuoteWerks. As far as some of the payment options that are available, a lot of times, a lot of companies want to pass on the convenience fee of a credit card. You know, those 3-4% charges on each transaction, those really do add up, especially if you have larger payments coming in. So there's a way to do that in QuoteWerks, and we'll make sure to cover that. But you can also do other things to encourage them to pay different ways, not necessarily charging a convenience fee, but maybe offer a small discount if they do pay by cash. You know, so if they're paying by check or ACH or something like that, you can actually offer a discount in your payment options, and you can set defaults for these as well, and we'll make sure to cover those also. Additionally, trouble collecting deposits. You know, this is a pretty common one where a lot of companies want to be able just to make a deposit amount. They don't want to pay for the full document until all the services are done. So this allows you that flexibility where you can collect the deposit based on a variety of factors, and you get to choose kind of what the customer is going to pay you for, and then you can kind of move forward from there. And then finally, tracking partial payments. I know this is a pretty common pain point with a lot of companies, is being able to request a payment, have the company pay a payment, and actually see that it's been received, and then see what the balance left is, like see how much the customer still owes you. So you can do some tracking here in QuoteWerks. So if any of these sound very familiar, we're going to walk through kind of how and address each one of those so you can move forward and start hopefully getting paid a lot quicker. So the first solution is simple, customizing payment options. On the Sale Info tab in QuoteWerks, we do have up to 7 different payment methods. So this allows you to actually set up different payment options on your quotes and proposals, and you can set defaults. You can add surcharges and discounts. There's a lot of flexibility here. There's a full-blown chapter, or its own full-blown help topic in Chapter 4 of the QuoteWerks help file. This has that information about the Sale Info tab, about the payment options, but this will kind of break down everything for you. But allowing these kind of different payment methods on your documents is going to make things a lot easier, because you'll be able to set it up as a default for credit cards or ACH or company check or Net 30. Whatever you want to do, you're going to have a lot of flexibility there. So we'll show you how you can set those defaults, how you can even use templates. So if you want to set up various template types with specific payment options, you can do that also. Next solution is going to be setting deposits. We have defaults for deposits, but this obviously will lower that barrier to entry, so you're not having to collect the 100% upfront. A lot of clients are kind of against that, but you know, a lot of times you need some of that capital to get started. You know, you need to order hardware or product things to get the actual implementation or whatever you're working on started for the customer. So this allows you to actually collect some of that money, and then you can go back and actually request additional payments from there. You can also customize that deposit based on what's being sold, so it doesn't have to be a flat rate for every customer you quote. You don't have to say, well, it has to be 20% all the time. It could be 20% for this customer, 15% for another. It could be based on what's actually being sold to the customer. So based on some of the hardware items, some of the software, some of the services you're doing, whatever it is, you'll have a lot of flexibility in kind of setting that up. There's a help file, Chapter 4 in the help file has some more information about setting this up, but we'll go through kind of setting up those defaults and how you can adjust those on the fly as well. And then finally, being able to request those payments. So a lot of times we talk about, you know, you're setting the deposit and you're requesting that deposit and you receive that deposit. Well, what happens next? You know, how do you request the additional payments? Or maybe the client hasn't paid the deposit yet and you want to go ahead and request a partial payment, or maybe it's changing, maybe the scope changed after they accepted the quote and they're going to pay, you know, less upfront than they were, they're going to pay more upfront. what's the flexibility, what are the options for that. So we're going to go through how you can actually request those partial payments, those additional payments, and how the customer can change kind of how they make payments. So if they do select credit card first, if they want to pay a different way, they can very easily without having to come forward to you and request that you make all these adjustments to their documents. So things like that can really speed up the process. That's kind of where we're going to go with that. Most of these payment options that we're going to discuss today are going to be available in QuoteValet. So if you don't have QuoteValet, we do offer free trials. That's going to be pretty important because although you can display the different various payment options on a PDF quote, it doesn't give the customer any flexibility to select an actual payment and then even submit payment to you. It doesn't give you the option to request a payment. So a lot of things that we're going to do today are going to require QuoteValet. So if you don't have QuoteValet and you're interested in getting set up with a trial account, just let us know. You can email sales@QuoteWerks.com. We'd be happy to set you up with a free trial so you can kind of test it out. As far as collecting payment itself, we do support about 80 different payment gateways. So a lot of the major banks, Bank of America, Chase, those types of things. We also support other gateways such as Connect Booster, or PNG, which I think a lot of you use. PayPal, ACH, wire transfer, leasing is available, and then you can even set up custom options. So if you're doing like net 30 or net 60 and you want your customer to mention they're going to pay that way, you can do that as well. So a lot of flexibility with these types of options here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the live demo. So basically, live demo is going to consist of setting these payment options and deposits, customizing those options per quote or in your template, requesting partial payments, and kind of changing payment options on the fly. So let's kind of step through this process here. So I'm going to switch over to QuoteWorks. Let's go. Give me one moment while I exit out of here. All right. So in QuoteWorks, there's a couple things we can do. So the first thing we want to tackle is the defaults. So you can set default payment options. So if you click on your sale info tab, you'll see I have two payment options here. These are actually set as my default, so credit card and e-check or ACH. So if you want to set your default payment options, those are going to be under your tools, options, and then you're going to click on your payment tab. And for most of you, payment tab is probably going to be all the way to the right here, depending on what add-ons you have in QuoteWorks. So you'll see when you click on that payment tab, you'll have the option to add these payment options, and there's a few other options that are available in this as well that allow some more customization features. So first example is payment options. So I have credit card and e-check. So if I go ahead and just edit this credit card one, you'll see when you add or edit a payment option, you'll be able to customize the payment display text. So for example, I want mine to say Visa, MasterCard, Amex, and Discover because those are the credit cards we accept. If you wanted to just call it credit card or something like that, you could definitely do that. But here you can customize the text, and this is what the client is going to see. So when the customer gets ready to make payment, when they select that payment option, that's what's actually going to be displayed for them. The next is the add a charge or percent discount or fixed charge or no charge. So if you need to add or want to add like a convenience fee or anything like that, you can do that. So you can actually set like a percent charge rate. So for example, if a customer is going to pay by credit card, I want there to be a 3% charge. So I basically am charging them that 3% convenience fee on that credit card charge. And then you can choose whether it's taxable or non-taxable. That allows me just to recoup some of that cost, when you have to pay over to your credit card processor, when they take a little chunk out of every transaction you run, that just allows you to recoup that cost. For some companies, you might want to go the opposite way. Maybe you just want to charge a fixed amount. So you can do a fixed charge of, $3 or $10 or whatever it's going to be. You can set that there. And then finally, you also have the option to do a percent discount, which is exactly like the percent charge, just on the opposite spectrum, where this will actually give you a discount on that. So for example, here, if, actually, let's go ahead and change that back to percent charge and then click OK. You'll see here my purchase e-check or ACH, it says discount in parentheses. And that's because I've set it up that there's a 3% discount when they pay by ACH. So this could actually be a pretty significant savings for the customer depending on the size of the quote, because it would be 3% more if they pay by credit card or 3% less than the standard amount if they pay by ACH. So that's a really good incentive for them to actually pay you by ACH, by cash, or by check, instead of having to chase them for a credit card each time. Now with a lot of companies, they prefer paying by ACH just because it's easier. There's less issue of fraud and things like that with their credit cards out, on all these monthly subscriptions. So there's a lot of flexibility for that, but that just kind of lets them get a little bit of a discount for paying by ACH. You save money, so it's a kind of a win-win there. You'll also see there's an option that says if document grand total amount is over a dollar amount, you can actually have this payment option disabled. So for instance, if you have a bunch of add-ons or a bunch of options that you're including in your quote, and at a certain amount, it just becomes pretty expensive for you to let that be processed by credit card, you can actually have a limit set. So for instance, if I set it to $15,000, for this example, my ACH payment would be not available on this quote because my quote's at $28,000. So since ACH doesn't cost me anything, I'm going to go ahead and leave that blank, but gives you some options here for setting that. And the last one is you can set your selections as default. And all this means is that when you select ACH payment, whether you add it manually on the document or you're making changes, these are the default settings that are going to come with it, so you don't have to set it each time. So it's just kind of like a time-saving feature there. In addition to credit card and ACH, which are probably the most common, you can also add other payment options such as check, PayPal, wire transfer, and then you can even customize to payment options. So for example, if you wanted to customize custom payment type 1, you can see here, I've already set it up to be net 30. I could add a surcharge or discount if I wanted to, and then same thing, you have those other options. If you're not going to use wire transfer and you need another payment option, you can customize these other payment options as well. So for instance, if you're never going to use check, but you need another option for another custom payment option, you can customize any of the options here to be and work any way that you need them to. So just something to keep in mind there. Okay, so let's go ahead and cancel out of there. So I've got my 2 default payment options set. Now here you can also choose to map the payment type display text. And all this means is when you select a payment type of credit card, this is the text that's going to be used by default. So if you leave this blank, it'll use whatever you set. Otherwise, it'll use this default here. So that's just something that you can quickly map. And then the option display macros, this is what the payment type or the payment macro is going to look like when it's displayed to the customer. So if you want to make changes to this, you can, and you can kind of play around with this and make any adjustments that you need to or that you want to. And if you make a change to something and it doesn't look right, you can always click on the reset arrow and it'll go back to the way it was. So for instance, I have mine kind of shortened where it's just going to display the payment type and the amount, and that's it. So it's going to be pretty straightforward there. Same thing with my payment type calculation. It's going to include the amount and the payment type calc word, and that'll make more sense once you see it. So it'll kind of look simpler like this instead of more complex with all the other text in there. So that's how you can set those defaults for your payment option. Now the other default we want to set here is our deposits. So if we click on our Documents tab here, if you scroll about almost all the way down to the bottom of the window here, you'll see there's a deposit amount and there's an ellipsis button. And if you click on that, that'll open up the deposit window. This is where you can set that deposit required amount. Now, for those of you that are using QuoteValet, in order to collect payment through QuoteValet, you have to have a deposit required. You have to have some type of deposit set. It can be the full amount, percent of the document, any of these options, but you have to have something set in order to actually bring up that payment screen. So just something to keep in mind if you're looking at setting deposits for your, or setting defaults for your deposits if you haven't yet. So for your deposit required, you do have quite a few options. You can set it for the full amount, percent of the document. So if you say, we always just take 20% of the document, that's what we need for our deposits to get started, then you can go ahead and set that here. If you want to do a fixed amount, you can do that as well. So if you want to say, we just need $1,500 minimum to get started, as long as it meets that threshold, we can get started on that, any quote. So you can set that also. You can also do it as a percent of a specific line item in the document. Maybe you have a specific product or service that you sell all the time and it always needs to be, you need to pay at least half of that up front. you can do that. And then totaling, this option is going to be really, really useful if you want the customer to pay for most of like the products, the hardware, the things that you buy from other vendors up front, but then maybe you bill them later for services. This is where you can do that. So you can actually say, hey, let's add up all the extended price of where all the items equal, and you could say, product or hardware or whatever your item types are, depending on what kind of industry you're in. But this is where you can actually say, I want 100% of that, but anything that's like labor or services or things like that, that would be billed at a different time. So this will give you that flexibility where you can make sure you collect anything that maybe you're buying from vendors where you're not actually like fronting the cash to the customer. So you can make those changes there. And this, again, just your default. And then finally, there's a new checkbox. This came out a couple build releases ago, but basically it allows the customer to pay the full amount or the remaining balance at any time. So there's actually a new option in QuoteValet on the payments that I'll show you, where the customer can actually forego just paying the deposit. Maybe you negotiated with them and you said, hey, if you make full payment on this document right now, we can start working on it tomorrow. But if you put in a deposit, we're just going to put you in line behind all these other companies that we're working with also. So you can add some incentive there, and it gives the customer the flexibility to make that decision. They say, okay, well, you know what, we really need this done ASAP. Let's go ahead and make the full payment amount, or our budget, it resets next week, so we need to spend these dollars now. They can just go ahead and make that full payment amount right then and there. So you have that flexibility in these settings here. So once you have made those default settings, you can go ahead and click OK, and then that'll save those options for you moving forward. Now, a couple things. These default settings are going to be site-wide, so these are going to change it for everybody in your organization. But that's a good thing, because this is going to allow, anytime you create a new document in QuoteWerks, you're already going to have these settings set. You're not going to have to backtrack and go back and set them. So on like your sale info tab, when you create a new document, it's going to have your new payment options on there by default. So we're going to go to the document items tab real quick. So if you want to change your deposit settings on a per document basis, you just need to click on the ellipsis button here in your document items window. That'll open up that deposit required window, and that'll let you modify it specifically for this document that I'm working on. So I have it set to % of the document. So maybe I want to take 50%. So then it'll take 50%. Or maybe I do want the fixed amount, and I just want it to be, we're going to have them pay $15,000 towards this document. You can do that, or like I said, the % of the line document, or that totaling, where I said, anything that's a product we want 100% of, and click OK. It'll calculate that deposit for you, and then you can display that to the customer and move forward from there. So the deposit can be changed on a per document basis. You can also do the same thing with the payment options. So if we go to the sale info tab and you said, okay, I want to have them pay by credit card, ACH, but I also want to give them the option of paying by company check. So let's go ahead and select the payment type of check, company check, no discount paying that way, and then we'll go ahead and just choose OK. And that'll actually add that third payment option onto the document. So now the customer has the option of paying by credit card, which is going to be about $800 more than by check, or if they pay by ACH, they actually get an $840 discount. So they're getting a pretty significant discount on this particular document by paying by ACH. So just gives them a little more incentive to, again, pay kind of by cash instead. Or at least if they do choose credit card, because that's just the way they make payments, you can kind of cover yourself on any of those surcharges or convenience fees that you're receiving. The other thing that you can do is set defaults and templates. So I know that's a pretty common use for a lot of companies, is they want to set template defaults. So if you create a specific kind of template that you're going to use in QuoteWerks, just set your payment options and your deposit required, what you want it to be for that template, and then save that template. And that's all you have to do. And then every time you load that template, it will have those specific payment options and that specific deposit. If you don't set a specific option, it'll just use whatever you have as your default instead. So it gives you just, again, more flexibility in what kind of payment options you're going to allow for your customer. All right, so let's go ahead and re-upload this document to QuoteValet since we added some changes here. So let's go ahead and choose deliver. And then one thing I wanted to show you was this is where the PDF, you can have those payment options listed on the document. So we have our PDF document, and let's go to the bottom of our screen here. I'm just going to zoom in so it's a little easier for you guys to see. But you can see here, we have our payment options. So it's going to be credit card, ACH, or company check. But obviously it's a PDF, so they can't really make any changes to it. You know, they could tell you which one they want to go for. If you're not using QuoteValet, that's fine. But really, the payment options, you're going to get the most out of that feature by integrating it with QuoteValet, by using QuoteValet with this. So this will show the customer that they have various payment options, and then they can obviously just manually select by telling you which ones they want to use. So that is also going to be available on the document. There's a macro for that you can add into your PDFs if you haven't already. So let's go ahead and upload this to QuoteValet, so we can see our various payment options for our customer. All right, so we're going to go ahead and upload that. And we'll just go ahead and copy that URL. Reload our quote so it has our changes. All right, so here's our quote. And if we scroll down, we saw all our line item information, everything looks normal. So this is where your client or your customer is going to have the ability to make those changes. So if they want to change from a specific payment option, they can go through and then they can make this selection. So let's go ahead and have the customer sign off. So they're going to pay by Visa, and they're going to say, yep, we agree to the terms and conditions. Please place my order ASAP. Sign off on it. It's going to be John Sales, and John will sign off on it. Looks good, and then we'll go ahead and accept it. So by them signing off on this, you'll receive those email notifications from QuoteValet. The customer accepted the quote. This will also bring them to that payment screen. So this is why it's important to make sure you have a deposit set, because if you don't have a deposit set, this pay now button won't show up, so you won't actually have access to that. So there's just something to keep in mind. So we'll click on Pay Now. And then when we scroll down, you'll see they have the option to pay by Visa, and they're going to pay the deposit amount. So they just put in their Visa or MasterCard or Amex or anything like that. However, because we had those other payment options on the quote, if the customer decides, you know, maybe they send this to accounting and the accountant says, whoa, if we pay by ACH, we can actually save, you know, compared to this quote, almost $1,500. Let's definitely select this option. Then they can easily make that change. So that's why having those multiple payment options available can really help you close those sales a lot faster, because maybe whoever accepted the quote doesn't know how they make payment. So they just chose credit card, or they just chose company check, and they pass this off to the accountant or whoever is going to make payment, and they say, no, we usually pay by ACH or net 30 or whatever it is. The customer will actually have options to kind of choose between the various payment options that you have on the document. So it just provides some flexibility there. So if we close out of here and we go to our QuoteValet tab, this will want to prompt us to convert our quote to an order since it was accepted. So we're going to go ahead and choose to do that. Convert that to an order. You'll see there's a couple things that you have here. Now, a lot of times when you receive payments, it's not always very fluid. Maybe the customer said they were going to pay by by credit card, but then they actually end up sending a check, 5 days later. Well, what you can do in those instances is you can actually do a make payment by proxy. So if they don't actually submit payment via QuoteValet, you can do make payment by proxy, and you can do it for a specific amount. So maybe you say, okay, this is in reference to the deposit, but actually we negotiated, so it's just going to be first installment. And they paid by company check, and it came in today, and it's going to be first payment. And we're going to say, they paid us $5,000 to get started. And then we'll hit OK. So now you can actually track those payments as they're coming in the payment options window here. And QuoteWerks will actually keep track of it and say, hey, here's the document total, and then here's the total payments received, and then here's how much is remaining. And then as you complete work, if you want to, you can choose request payment. And when you request payment, it's going to bring up this window here. and it'll say, okay, what do you want to do? Maybe say, second project phase, and the amount, it's a little bit more. It's going to be $10,000 for this one, and we don't want to give them the option for company check. We say, hey, you got to pay us by credit card or ACH this time, or you can pay out the full amount. And then what you can do is you can click OK, and QuoteWerks will actually push those changes up to QuoteValet, create a link for it, and if we go to our view payment request page, we'll actually see the new payment amount. So we'll see this payment amount with the 3% credit, or they can select ACH and they get the 3% discount automatically, so that's saving and using those settings, or they can actually just pay off the full amount, again, using the credit card or the ACH option. So again, a lot of flexibility for the customer and a lot of flexibility for you just to kind of simplify accepting and making those payments. And then each time you receive those payments, if it's via QuoteValet, it'll show up in here automatically. If it's manual, so if you're getting a check or maybe they wired you funds or anything like that, you can simply do make payment by proxy, and you can update it essentially as much as you need until you've actually balanced out that number. There is in QuoteValet the option to view balance remaining documents. So if you're worried about being able to track that information in QuoteWerks, you can always click on the QuoteValet dashboard, click on your reporting tab, and there's actually an option for accepted with balance due. And this will show you a list of any documents that you have where the customer has accepted it, but they haven't made full payment. They may have made partial payment, they may have made no payment, but you'll actually have access to that. Okay. I think that's everything we wanted to cover today. I think that's everything in kind of like our syllabus. So obviously, if you have any questions, kind of anything that you've seen today, definitely let us know. We will be sending a recording of this webinar out to everyone who signed up. So that should be on the website, hopefully later this week, but if not, definitely by early next week, we'll have a copy of that out to everyone. We do also have a ton of resources available. So if you, if you have questions, we offer free trials of pretty much any of the add-ons to QuoteWerks. We have a ton of videos, our help files always available, and we do have these live and recorded webinars available as well. So definitely, if you have questions or need something, feel free to give us a call, send us an email. We're always happy to help. If you do have any questions, go ahead and stick around. I'm going to go ahead and start answering some of those. If you don't have any questions, then thanks for attending, and we'll make sure to get the recording out to you shortly.